We're going to go ahead and get started with the quick start on the LinkRunner G2. My name's Mike Pennacchi, owner of Network Protocol Specialists LLC, and I'm going to be taking you through some of the key features of the LinkRunner G2. So before we get going, what I want to do is I just want to go through a quick overview of the LinkRunner G2 physically to show you what the different interfaces and so on are on this tool. So let's switch over here and take a look at the LinkRunner G2. So here we have the device. Up on the top, if we flip this up, we've got a SFP cage right here. This supports a gig and 100 meg SFP. So we run into some cases with industrial automation and so on, where 100 meg fiber is being used. You could put a 100 meg SFP in there, you could put a gig SFP. Then we have our copper port. This copper port supports 10, 100, 1000, and PoE up to 71.3 watts. Now what you'll find is that if you're using the fiber port right here, that the link light shows up right there for that port. It also has a USB port up here on the top. And one of the things that I like to do is I like to use the Edimax 802.11 adapter that includes Bluetooth. So this supports 2.4 gig Wi-Fi, and it allows us to come in and connect this up to our Wi-Fi network. It also allows us to connect with Bluetooth devices, such as keyboards, barcode scanners. And one of the things I can show is there's a serial cable that I use for configuring devices like routers and switches that uses Bluetooth as well. Now, if we flip it over here on the side, we have a micro SD port right there. I find that that is great for doing things like saving capture files, for going in and putting documentation and so on there, so we have that for reference. We've got a micro USB port. We've got volume up, volume down. We've got our power connector right there. And if we flip it over to the back, we've got a camera and a flashlight on the back. And then all the way over, we've got our wire mapper port over there. And we'll see how that works in just a little bit. So there is just a quick physical overview of the LinkRunner G2. I'm going to go in and share my screen so that we can take a look at the LinkRunner G2 screen. So let's go ahead and we're going to pop out here and jump out to the home screen. So this is an Android device. What we'll go into just a little bit with this is the Play Store, or the App Store that we've got in there. I'm used to Android Play Store. But in this case, we have the NetAlly App Store. In fact, let's just go ahead and jump right in there. With the App Store, there are hundreds of different apps that NetAlly has loaded up into this store. So now we have the ability to come in here and get that information. Now what it's doing is it says loading. What we need to do is we need to come in and let's go out to our settings right here. Let's make sure we're connected to a Wi-Fi network. So we're going to connect, Wi-Fi is turned off. So we're going to turn Wi-Fi on. Now, this does not have integrated Wi-Fi. In this case, it has that Wi-Fi adapter up there at the top. I'm going to go ahead and pause my share for just a second while I type in my password. There we go. We'll get that connected to our Wi-Fi network. We'll start our share again. So now we're going out. We connect to our Wi-Fi network. Oh, these live demos. Let's go ahead and turn that on again. But we need to be connected. There we go. We need to be connected to the network for that App Store to populate. So let's go back. We'll click on the App Store. There we go. There's all the apps. So we will get back to this later. But what we find is with the App Store, we can come in and we can install any number of these apps. They run on the Android device just like any other Android device. Let's jump right into the LinkRunner G2 app. With the LinkRunner G2 app, this is where we can connect the LinkRunner G2 using either the copper port on the top or the wireless port on the top as well. We can connect the wireless port for getting things like the App Store. We can connect the copper port, or we can connect the fiber port up on the top. So in this case, I have connected up here to my switch. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my settings back to default settings. Okay. When we connect the LinkRunner G2 up to our network, it is going to go out and run this test. So the first thing it's going to do is it's going to look at the speed and duplex of the connection that we're connected to. So here we can see that we're connected up to the network. We're connected at gigabit. So it's bold right there. That lets us know that we've connected at gig. We've connected at full duplex. It tells us our switch is advertising 10, 100, 1000. We connected at gig. The switch is advertising half or full duplex. We connected at full. It shows us that the polarity is good and that we're connected via our RJ45 interface. So this gives us a good idea of what's going on as far as our connection to the network. Next, Vlan Information. The LinkRunner G2 supports 802.1q Vlan Tags. Now right now we aren't using a Vlan tag, but what this does is this shows us right here that there are 3 VLANs that have been seen on this port in addition to the native VLAN that we're connected to. So if we're expecting that there's a number of VLANs on a port, we don't even have to connect to each one. In this case, we see that VLANs 10, 14, and 12 are present on this port. So it's a great way to go in and validate that the VLANs that we're expecting are available there. This is what I think is one of my favorite features right here. And this is where the LinkRunner G2 is going out and it is listening for CDP, LLDP, EDP, and FDP. So in this case, this switch is sending out LLDP. Tells us that we're connected to Studio Switch 1, interface Gig 8. There's the name of the switch, the model, the IP address, and we learn this via LLDP. So we don't have to go out and trace down cables. I know exactly where I'm plugged in. Now in this case, the switch is sitting right here on my bench. But if that switch was located in a wiring closet, I don't have to find the wall plate number and trace that back to the patch panel and trace a cable over to a switch port. I know exactly which switch and port I'm connected to. So this is a great way to validate this information. Now you notice there's a refresh button right there. Now with that refresh button, what that allows us to do is go in and refresh this information. Now you notice there it said MikroTik. I'll hit refresh again. So sometimes we may have devices sending out both LLDP and CDP on our network. And in this case, we've got a number of devices sending out CDP, and that's being passed through our switch. And that LinkRunner G2 is picking that up. So if we get information that doesn't match up with what we expect in here, we can use the refresh to refresh that to make sure that we get the information that we expect. Next is DHCP. So in this case, I can see I sent out my DHCP Discover. I got my offer back in 3.5 seconds. I sent my request. I got my ACK back. So this is the little 4-way handshake that we do when we get a DHCP address. I send out a Discover. Any of the DHCP servers that support that scope are going to send back an offer. So if I've run out of DHCP addresses, if there's something wrong with DHCP, I may not see an offer. And this helps me determine why I can't get the connectivity I need. So here, that process worked exactly as I expected it to. It shows me my DHCP server. Now, if I had a rogue DHCP server out here on my network, I could go in and use this as a way to determine who is handing out DHCP addresses that shouldn't be. I could get that IP address. Use that to start tracking down where that device is. So in this case, it shows the subnet, and it shows my lease time, which is 24 hours. We come down a little bit further. Shows me my DNS information. So with my DNS information, we can see that my primary DNS server right here is 10.0.0.46. I got responses back to that. 75, 75, 75, 8.8.8. So I can get to all of my DNS servers. So typically, when we're looking at what would keep somebody from being able to get work done on the network, they can't get connected to the network as far as being able to get a physical connection. They can't get a DHCP address, and they can't get to DNS. If we can get an IP address and we can get to DNS and we can get to our default router, in most cases, everything's going to work great for us. So here, we got to DNS. Here's our default router. So it shows me right here, my default router, tells me how long it took to get to it, and it shows me my public IP address. Now, I found that this is really handy if I'm working in an environment where maybe I don't have access to the router that's connected to the internet. So by being able to come in and get to that information can help me figure out things if I'm trying to set up VPN tunnels, things like that. So right here, I can click on that, and I'm going to drag this up just a little bit. And now we can do a continuous ping. So if I had questions about the connectivity to my default router, I could start this continuous ping right here, and it's going to show me if I lose any packets. Now, if we come over to our LinkRunner G2, let's say, for instance, there was something on this screen that was interesting to me, and I wanted to grab a screenshot of it. What I can do is come in here and press the down volume button and the power button, click and hold those, and that's going to take a screenshot of that screen for me. So now that is in the picture gallery. We'll go ahead and stop that. And I could go back in and I could grab that and I could attach that to this Link Live record. If we have time today, we'll delve into Link Live. But what we find is because I've set up a free Link Live account and I have claimed my LinkRunner G2 to my Link Live account, I am now able to come in here and upload these test results to Link Live. Now in this case, I've set up, well, we have the default target of Google. So we went out and we did a TCP connection test to www.google.com to see if we could connect to that, which we were able to. And we could do a continuous on that too. So now what do I know? I know I can connect to the network at gig full. I know that I'm on the native VLAN. I know that I am able to get a DHCP address, get to my DNS servers, and I can get out to Google. Now, I've uploaded that information to Link Live. So that's great. Now let's look at how we can start modifying this to match our specific needs. So I'm going to come up here and I'm going to go to my menu. I'm going to go to Settings. And let's turn on PoE. So we're going to come in and we're going to turn on PoE. Now there are a couple of different options when it comes to PoE in here. The first option is just to measure the voltage that's being provided to the LinkRunner G2. The other is True Power. Now I prefer True Power because what True Power does is it puts a load on that connection. So I can come in and select my class of service. So I can choose which class of power I want to receive, all the way up to 71.3 watts. This even supports testing power injectors. I use a lot of equipment that has power injectors where it's not looking for the resistance on there to send the PoE. It's not doing any negotiation. It's just sending power. Well, this will measure the voltage on those pins and show us that voltage. In this case, I have a class 3 switch. So it'll provide up to 13 watts of power. So I can select class 3. This is going to ensure that if I have high resistance on this cabling, that it's going to pick that up, because if we're just measuring the voltage, as we draw that current, we're not going to see any problems with resistance if we're just measuring the voltage. If we're also drawing current, as that resistance goes up, our voltage is going to drop down. Next, we can select our connect. We can force our speed and duplex. Normally, we're going to set this to auto, but if for some reason you're in an environment where you've forced speed and duplex, we can go in and set that. 802.1x authentication. Here, we could turn this on. If we wanted to set up authentication, we could put in a username and password. And if we select a authentication type that requires a certificate, we can import that from that micro SD card that I showed you at the beginning. IP configuration, this supports DHCP and it supports a static address. Now in both cases, we can save this profile. You notice up at the top of the screen it says default settings. And there's a little asterisk next to it. That tells me that I've changed this default settings profile. So after I get done setting this up the way I want it, I can save that profile. This means that if I have a network that requires a static IP address, I can go in, I can save this profile for that network. And I don't have to go back and look up that IP address every time. It's right there in the configuration. If I require a proxy server to get out to the internet, and this is for testing targets and uploading to Link Live, I can come in here and turn on proxy and provide the authentication information. So here are my targets. When we connect to the network, not only do we need to have that information like an IP address, DNS servers, and a default gateway, there's devices we need to get our job done. So this is where we can go in and add targets. So I could come in and say I want to add a target. Now, in my network, I have my NAS server I get to that has all my files. So I could say 10.0.0.60. I'll hit OK. Now, if we turn on TCP, we specify a port. Now, in the case of the NAS drive, I use port 445 to get to that NAS drive. I can say OK. I'm going to add another target. I'm going to put in my email server, secure.emailsrvr.com. I'll hit OK. Now there's two different ports I use for that. There's ports 993. Say OK. And there's port 465. Now instead of typing all that in again, I can come in right here and I can say duplicate. So I just duplicated that target, and now I can put in port 465. I'll hit OK. So I can add as many targets as I want. So I can create profiles that test specific user groups, specific applications to make sure we can get to all the servers that those applications need to get to. Now, if we turn off, let's add one more target. I'm going to put in my IP PBX 10.0.0.50. Now, instead of testing TCP on here, I'm just going to ping that device. So I turned off TCP. If TCP is turned off, then we send a ping. Now, down here we have stop after. With stop after, we can tell it where to stop testing. So let's say that you're spinning up a new network. And you've got the switches set up, but you don't have any DNS servers, DHCP. All you want to do is make sure you have link, and you want to document what port that wall plate's connected to. We could stop at link. We could stop at DHCP. So we can select how far through this testing we want to go. And this speeds up testing if you don't need to do all of the tests. Here we have enable VLAN. So I mentioned at the beginning, I was using the native VLAN. All my packets are untagged. In this case, if I turn on Enable VLAN, I can come in here and I could say, you know what? We're going to test VLAN 10. So what this will do is every packet I send will be tagged with VLAN 10 using the 802.1q settings. I could set a priority. And the last one we have down here, as far as our settings go, our user-defined MAC address. Now you might say, Mike, why would I want to change the MAC address on my LinkRunner G2? The reason you might want to change that MAC address is because you are going in and testing a DHCP reservation. So you've gone in and created a DHCP reservation. We want to make sure that's working before we deploy that device. We could set this to that MAC address to make sure it gets the right IP. Now, I have changed the default settings. I don't want to overwrite the default settings. So I could come in here and I could say Save As. And I could say May 2021 QS. So I'm going to save this as the May 2021 Quick Start. I'll hit Save. So now this has been saved as a profile, and I can have as many profiles on here as I want. We're going to go back. Now the other thing I'm going to set right here is job. Now we're going to see that we can add comments to our tests. With a job comment, this comment gets added to every single test that gets run. So this could be a customer name. This could be a building number. This could be a floor number. This will automatically get added to each one of your tests. Now, if we put a / in front of it, it's going to create a folder in Link Live and put all the test results in that folder. So what I'm going to do is we're going to back up. We're going to put in May 2021 QS. I'll say OK. So now every test we run from this point on is going to be put in that folder. It makes it easy to go back and find those test results. You're going to see when we go into Link Live, I've got about 3,000 or more test results. So I'm going to hit refresh, rerun our test. So now we've come in, we're getting 46.3 volts, 13 watts. We're getting the class of PoE we need. Right here, we've got our connection. Here, we see that we're on VLAN 10. If I show this, shows me what VLANs we've seen on there. Shows me I've connected to my switch. I've got a 10.0.0.170 address. That is on VLAN 10. We are able to get DNS, default gateway. We come up here, we are able to ping the IP PBX, get to Google, get to the NAS drive, get to email, and upload those results. Now, once I do that, I can come in and click on my little action button. And here we can either add a picture or we can add a comment. So I'm going to go ahead and add a comment. And my comment here so let's say I'm connected to jack 8A. So I'm going to say Studio 8A. I'll hit OK. Now, I could add another comment. I can add as many comments as I want. I can even come in and tap on Add and say Add a picture, and I could grab the picture of me pinging that device and say, yes, I want to add that to Link Live as well. So now I've associated those comments and that picture with this test result. This is a great way to go in and validate that this connection is working exactly the way we want it to. We've checked to make sure that we can get to all the services we need to get to. Now, let's say that we don't want to go through all of these tests. Let's say that we just want to come in very quickly and see what switch port we're connected to. This is where I can pop over here to switch. Switch is going to quickly give me information about the device I'm connected to. Here it tells me I'm connected to Studio Switch 1. It shows me that the IP address of that switch. I can't tell you how many times I use this just to get the IP address of the switch. In my lab, a lot of the switches have DHCP on them. I don't assign static addresses. So instead of trying to manage the static addresses of these switches that may end up on different networks, I just leave them to DHCP and I grab my LinkRunner G2, I plug that in and I use it to get the IP address for that switch. Now it tells me my speed in duplex. It shows me that unloaded, before I applied that 13 watt load, I was getting 46.3 volts. But as soon as I loaded that up, I got 45.4. Shows me what pins, what pairs I'm receiving power on. Now, if I click on the floating action button there, I can refresh my discovery information, or I can flash the port. It would be nice if every switch was managed and every switch told us the switch name, the port, all that information. But they don't. So in this case, what I can do is I can flash the port on the switch. This is a great way to go in and find switch ports of unmanaged switches. We'll close that. Now the other test we can do up here is cable. So with cable, if we select that, this shows me I'm connected to a switch. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab a little box I have back here. Need to clean that drawer out. We're going to switch over here. So now, there's a couple things I can do. Let's zoom out. So if we look at the screen, I'm going to grab a patch cable over here. We're going to plug that into this little test box right here. So I'm going to plug it into number 5. Let's see what's going on with number 5. So I'm going to unplug the cable from the top of the LinkRunner G2. Actually, we're going to do this. We're going to plug number 5 into the LinkRunner G2. Now we can hit refresh. We can say, what does that show us? Well, that shows us that number 5 is good. Now, I can take and come out of number 5 and plug that into the wire mapper port on the side of the LinkRunner G2. And I can hit refresh. Now this shows me that pair 7/8 is broken. Well, that's no good. Now what's happened is pair 7/8 is broken out at the far end. And as a result, what's happening is that it is not able to detect that that pin is broken because all of them are the same length if we don't measure it using a wire mapper. So we can use the built-in wire mapper on the side of the LinkRunner G2. The other thing we can do is we can use one of these little wire view mappers right here, and we can plug that into the far end. So if I plug that in out here, and I hit refresh, we see that we get that same result. Now let's go in and take a look at a few other connections here and see what we've got. We're going to plug into number 4. So we'll find number 4 right here. So when it comes to the LinkRunner G2, there's a couple of different types of tests. There are terminated tests and there are unterminated tests. And to see things like where we have a crossover cable, we need to do a terminated test. We need to have a terminator at the far end. So we can either use the wire view mapper that comes with it, or we can use the wire view or the wire mapper port on the side. Now let's test one more just to see what other kind of cabling problems we have here. So if we come over, and I'll grab number 3, we'll plug that in, we'll hit refresh right there. Now let's say that you wanted to document this, here all of our pairs are rolled over. What we could do is we could go in, we could press that power button and the down volume, take our screenshot. I could then go back to my last I could go back to my AutoTest and I could upload that to Link Live. So what we can do is we can go in, we can use this to validate our network connections. We can use it to test cabling, so I can ensure that all of my pairs make it through from one end to the other on my cabling. I can even come in and load apps on here from the App Store. Now, we've got a little file manager there. We've got a web browser. So I've gone in here, and let me just grab this real quick. I have a little Bluetooth keyboard. So let's switch over. We'll zoom in just a little bit. Or in. Here's a Bluetooth keyboard. So if I want to type things in on here without using the keyboard on the screen, I could plug in this Bluetooth keyboard. I've also got, dig this out here, and these are all things that are supported either natively through Android or available through the App Store. Here is this Air Console. Now the Air Console is a Bluetooth/Wi-Fi to console port adapter. So I can plug this into the serial port of a device. I can either connect via Bluetooth or Wi-Fi. And I can come out, and let's see if I have it loaded on this one. So this one is SerialBot, is the app. So let's go back out to our home screen. I'll say the store. We'll say search. We'll search for SerialBot. See if that's going to find it for me. Let's come back. We'll just scroll. Well, that could take a long time. But what we find, there are hundreds of apps out here now. I think I can scroll faster with my finger on there. There we go. So we'll come down here and let's look for SerialBot. There it is right there. So I can come into SerialBot and hit download. And I could download that app. I could open that, and now I could connect that app to this serial adapter right there and be able to connect up. There are also, we can come in, there's telnet terminals. So if I want to be able to telnet into a device, I can do that. So the great thing with this tool is it gives us the ability to go in and start taking a look at what's happening on our network. Can we get to the devices we need to get to? And we can upload those results. So let me grab my chair here real quick. And we are going to come in. We're going to connect up to Link Live. Let's see what we got when we went in and saved that to Link Live. We'll stop sharing for just a second. I'm going to go out to my web browser. I'll bring up Link Live. We'll bring this up here on the screen. Actually, I'm going to bring it down here. A little easier for me to see. And I will share my screen. So here we have Link Live. And we can see our various test results. Now I'm going to zoom in just a little bit to make it easier to see here. But if we come in and take a look, you notice that right here we have May 2021 QS. That's the folder. There's Studio 8A. There's May QS, and then we've got this little icon for a picture. So over here, if we walk through this, this is what the LinkRunner G2 has uploaded when we ran the test. LinkRunner G2, Ethernet connection, gives us the serial number right there. We come over here, there's our PoE information. We slide over here, here's our switch, our link information. There's our VLAN information. There's our switch information. Anything that is blue, we can click on and it will create a filter. So I could say, show me every test result for Studio Switch 1. So if I tap on that, if we come over here, it's applied a filter to show me that 341 of my 3,536 tests have been for that switch. And that filter is right up here at the top. So I can click on the X and get rid of that filter, and it shows everything. We'll come down here. It gives me all that information: DHCP, DNS, default gateway, ping of my IP PBX. There I got to Google. We come over here. We're testing our NAS. We're testing our email server. And if we come down, we see right there, there's that screenshot that we attached to it. So now we're able to document all that information. So if all you did was go through and every time you were getting ready to hook a device up, you went in, you ran an auto test, and you put in what port and switch that, or you uploaded that information, you put in the wall plate number, now you would have a connection between that wall plate number and that switch port. So I can come up here to the top of my screen and I could hit search and I could type Studio 8A. I could search for that. There is the one record out of 3,500 that contains that information. So now I've put in Studio 8A. I can come over here and I can see that Studio 8A, when this test was run, was connected to this switch and this port. I can do that from any web browser. So it provides a way I can easily get that information about where things are connected. Now, filters can be set up on pass or fail, warnings, and failures, pass, fail, and warnings. We can set it up on a calendar, or I could come in and jump into this folder. Remember I told you I created a folder? So now every test that gets run gets put in that folder. So let me go over here and we'll run another test. I'm going to come in, I'm going to plug in an Ethernet connection. Let me move the switch port here. We're going to plug in an Ethernet. Now this went to sleep. Watch this. When I plug in that Ethernet connection, it wakes up and it automatically starts running our test. So watch our screen, because when that gets done and that uploads that information to Link Live, we're going to see that new test result pop up right there. Now, if I go in, let's go to that new test result. Notice that there isn't any other labels other than the job folder. Let's add a label. So I'm going to come in and I'm going to go out here. We're going to tap on this. I'm going to say add comment. We're going to say, let me click in that field. I'll say Studio 8B. Okay. Now you're going to see that label pop up on that screen. There it is, right there. Studio 8B. So that label was just attached. So now we can start documenting all that. Now if we come out and we go to the lower right-hand corner of the screen, we have our generate report. Now I can generate this report as a CSV or a PDF. Now the CSV is great because it gives me all that information in a way that I can go out and extract it later on. The PDF is a great report to give to somebody to show all the testing that we did. So by coming in and claiming your tester, so if I go in, I set up my Link Live account, and I come down here and I click on that little claim icon, I can come in and claim my LinkRunner G2 to Link Live. If I can get out to the internet at the time I run the test, it will upload that test. If I can't, it's going to queue those tests up until it can get out to the internet. It's going to upload those tests to Link Live, so now I have that information stored out there. And if you get in the habit of testing ports before you connect devices up, documenting the wall plate, the physical location, office, building, floor, wall plate number, you can then use this as a way to quickly figure out where they're connected without having to go out to that connection. You'll also find that as you start using the apps on here, you can go in and load up apps that allow you to connect in and configure wireless access points, that allow you to configure routers and switches. We have a web browser available on there. So you don't have to drag a PC around with you. And if you grab a Bluetooth keyboard, you can then start typing in there. You don't have to use the on-screen keyboard if you don't want. So the LinkRunner G2 is a phenomenal everyday tool for going in and doing troubleshooting and validation. Now I'm going to change the share here on the screen again. We're going to come back. You probably noticed that there were a few other little options up there. One is reflector. So this will work in conjunction with tools like the Etherscope NXG. The Etherscope NXG has a performance tool that will send packets. This will flip those packets around and send them back to the Etherscope NXG. This allows us to do throughput testing up to full line rate, full duplex gig. We have a Vlan Monitor. We can tap on that. It's going to show us how many packets we've seen, how many frames we've seen from each different VLAN. This is a great way to make sure that the VLANs that we expect to be on there are on there. We can also do packet capture. So I can come in here, there's my capture file, there's my file size. I can say slice unlimited. So this will capture the whole packet. So let's go ahead and we'll leave that at 1 meg. We'll hit start. Oh, I don't have an SD card in it. So we need to have an SD card to do that, but we can use this to capture packets. So this is a great way to have a tool to go out there, grab a quick packet capture, be able to upload that and take a look at it. So, one last thing. Let's come in here. Let's switch back over to Link Live. So if I come into Link Live and I come up here to my menu, I go to Settings. I go to LinkRunner G2. Now, what we see if we go into Settings for LinkRunner G2 is we see all of this info out here. What we can do is we can create a profile out here. So I could say I want to enable PoE and I want to do true power. I'll leave VLAN turned off. I can leave my connect to auto, and I can come in, I could say, do I want to do DHCP? Do I want to do a static address? And in this case, I can add in, I've got a whole bunch of targets out here that I've added. So I can configure targets. This is a great tool if you have a whole bunch of LinkRunner G2s out in the field, or you have a specific test that you would like somebody to run using the LinkRunner G2. So if I'm the network engineer and I say, hey, I need you to do some testing, but instead of making you configure all the tests, I'm going to go into Link Live, and I am going to set up this test. Now what I can do is I can come out here and I can scroll down and I can say, do I want to apply this to specific units or all of them? So I can choose my LinkRunner G2s and I can say I want to apply this to these LinkRunner G2s. So what it will do is it will push that profile out to those LinkRunner G2s. So let me just look at, I'm using C5500. So I'm going to come into Settings, LinkRunner G2. I'm going to come down here. I'm going to apply to specific units. There's C5500. I'll hit Apply. So now it is pushing that out to that LinkRunner. So let's change over to the LinkRunner. And if I go to Profile, and I go to Link Live, it will load that profile that we just set up. So now it's going to go out, and it's going to run that test. Now there's going to be a lot of failures on this test because a lot of those devices that it's going out to check aren't hooked up to the network right now. So this is a way we can go in, we can run the test, and we can take those results, we can upload those to Linkware Live, and then the person, so here all these devices are going to fail because I don't have them turned on right now. But the person that set up the test can then go out and see the results. So this is a great way to go in and do some testing by setting it up centrally, have the person out at the remote site test it, and then push those results back up. All right, so that concludes our quick start. All right, so that concludes our quick start on the LinkRunner G2. I'm going to go ahead and drop off, and we're going to get set up for our quick start on the AirCheck G2 coming up here in just a few minutes. So I want to thank you for joining me. I hope to see you in the AirCheck G2 and possibly the Etherscope NXG quick start that I'm going to be doing in about an hour. So thanks for joining me, and happy troubleshooting.